Look at his hat. It says ho ho. Go buy it. Affiliate links below. If you go to ChatGPT and type in what is materialism in chess, it says in chess, materialism refers to a playing style or mindset focused primarily on the value and quantity of pieces rather than other aspects of the game such as positional advantages, king safety, or long-term strategic plans. Blah blah. First problem you see is people don't want to give back material to win the game. And so have a look at this position. Real life example from chess.com. Black is +4 on material. Black is totally winning, and in this position is low on time. So a move that should stick out like a sore thumb to simplify this game is queen takes g2. And after queen takes g2, f takes g2, king takes g2, yeah, you've given back a pawn, but so what? After king d7, stopping the rook from getting down the e-file, you have a totally winning endgame. You try to trade off the rooks, you dance around with your knight, and you win it. Now, it's an imperfect example because queen to g4 is totally forcing as well. The queen can't move. It's the only thing guarding against mate on g2. But at the lower levels, we're not going to find all these great moves. Queen takes g2 is perfectly fine and obvious. However, in this position, what Black does is instead plays this move knight to e5 and then tries to creep up the board. But unfortunately, the white queen gets to the other side, and of course, it's flagging time. We have a check. We have more checks. We have a threat of perpetual. Of course, Black doesn't want to accept the perpetual. They're totally winning. They don't want to draw the game. But unfortunately, it gets even worse because they lose on time. Guys, just give back material to win the game. Second problem I see is that we don't calculate material sacrifices when attacking. And so going through sacrifices in any or middle game is obviously not feasible, impractical in 10-minute rapid chess where we're just going to get into time trouble and lose. However, when we're dancing up the pitch, where we're attacking, we need to go through these things. And so in this position, white has played this move queen to h3, threatening mate here on h7. Black does a sensible thing and plays h5. And now because I alerted you to something, you should figure out a very strong move here for white. The black knight is offside, the queen isn't doing much, these rooks are connected but passive, but fundamentally this king has a lot of dark squared weaknesses, and so well done if you figured it out. The very strong move in this position is knight takes e6. And it's an imperfect example because black can simply move its rook out the way, threaten to take the knight goes back, and all you've done is pinch the pawn. However, in this position, low rated chess, many people are going to take. And after f takes e6, it's just game over. Because rook takes e6, they don't want to give up their queen, but they must. We have here rook takes g6, king h8, queen takes h5, check. The queen blocks. And before you play queen e5, you've got to act smug and put GG in the chat. Third problem I see is people accepting gambits and then following up with a whole bunch of slow moves. And so if you're going to accept a gambit, you've got to understand your opponent's going to get compensation. They're going to move quickly, and you need to as well. And so we have here on the screen the black mode email gambit. Black accepts. We have here knight to c3, knight f6, f3, e takes f3, knight to f3. And of course, black is up a pawn. Completely fine position. However, what black does is play h6, e6, and c6 without developing anything and gets completely crushed. Let me show you. We have h6, useless move because bishop g5 is not a pin. We have here bishop to d3, c6, castles, e6, queen to e1, obviously threatening queen to g3 and pressure down the king side. We have here bishop to b4, queen g3, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, g6, inviting, of course, this sack. Bishop takes g6. The rook tries to pin. Doesn't work. Bishop takes f7. King takes f7. Knight to e5. Very forcing. And we'll just fast forward a whole bunch of moves. The king does a little dance up the board. And, of course, gets checkmated. But you go back. Black accepted the gambit, but proceeded to make these 3 pawn moves, which basically resulted in it getting crushed. Problem number 4 is that we try way too hard to make up for a material deficit. And so have a look at this position. Black is a pawn down, is in some bother. Don't worry about the engine evaluation right now. Remember, you don't have access to that in a game. And so in this position, a move that comes to mind immediately is queen takes c3, but it just invites a lot of trouble because after rook to e3, the queen's got to move again. White decides to move the rook up the board here to d8. Black doesn't want to take, because then we have this exchange and the queen gets in, but it doesn't matter because after a few moves it's going to be checkmate. And so let's go back. Let's go back to when white played this move, e6. In this position, instead of taking this pawn, and you've got to think about this for a second, because black has 3 pawns versus 2 isolated pawns, so some point in the future you might get some counterplay down the queen side. A good move in this position is just a queen exchange. After queen takes g5, h takes g5, what would your ideas be to try and defend? This pawn isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. White can't play a move like this. That's just a blunder because we're going to take this rook. And so what would we want to do? Maybe something like knight to a6, knight c7, triple attack this. But if we try something like that, we're going to have here maybe rook d6. So let's go with c5. And after c5, let's say something like rook b1. Remember, low-rated players are not going to play perfectly. We can just push here. And all of a sudden, we have some play in this game. Okay, the engine says white is totally winning. They won't want to take because we're going to have this 2-on-1 situation. White is totally winning. But you have a better chance of saving this game if you go for the queen exchange and try to defend rather than taking this useless pawn, which is forever weak. Fifth problem I see is that we take material that we ought to hide behind. And so have a look at this position. White is totally crushing it. It doesn't matter at lower levels. Many people will fail to convert if you defend doggedly. However, if you play a move like knight takes g5, it's going to be over very quickly because now this line is open to the king and also this line. We have queen to g4, very strong move here from white. Knight to e6, the only thing that black can do to save the knight and also stop mate on g7, but it doesn't matter because a few moves later, black gets checkmated anyway. Now, instead of playing knight takes g5, we can simply say to white, well, go on then, convert the game. Have something like, say, queen to a6, try to get your queen to the right side of the board. If they decide to take, it doesn't go anywhere because we have here queen to e6, and this guards the f7 square and also offers some future threat in this position. If they decide to play something like g6, doesn't do anything. Knight takes f6, takes, king takes f7, it's just game on. But don't give the game away. Hide behind these pawns and make white earn its victory. The sixth problem I see, which I think will take a lifetime for us to solve, is protecting material when there are stronger moves that effectively kill the game. And so in this position, white is attacking the rook. Black spends 5 or 6 seconds thinking about it and just simply moves the rook back. And because I'm leading with this, you know what move you should play in this position is, of course, d2. The rooks are forked. Perhaps black didn't do this because they're worried about this check here on e8. We can simply block here. And white has no time to take the rook, because we're threatening to promote. If they decide to block, we have this move rook c1, and it's effectively GG. Problem number 7 is giving up 2 minor pieces for a rook and a pawn. You'd be amazed how many examples that you would find online where people do this kind of stuff, even though it's an equal trade. Usually, not always, 2 minor pieces for a rook and a pawn is losing. And so we have here knight to c4 from white, and of course what black can do in this position is bishop takes. But they don't find it, is bishop takes c4, bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, rook takes f5. Okay, it's an equal material exchange. However, black is crushing it. Problem number 8 is people going down the exchange and thinking it's the end of the world. And so for some reason in this position, staying with the same game as before, white gets the fork in, knight to c7, or f7, excuse me. The rooks are forked and black just resigns. What for? Play on, guys. After rook g8, knight takes h8, rook takes h8. How is white going to convert this game? Black has some control over this G file. It's game on. Play on, guys. A 9th problem that we all face is that we are too eager to trade down material when we're winning. And so in this position, white is a pawn up. White is totally crushing it, goes for the exchange. But that just gets rid of a lot of the safety problems that black has. Instead, in this position, maybe something like queen to a6, followed by rook on a to e1. Black has to forever babysit this a7 pawn. It's white that has all the play. Instead, what you see in the game is queen takes d7, king takes d7, rook on a to e1. And okay, white is still crushing it. This pawn is weak. Bishop f5 looks pretty lethal. This bishop can't move. Okay, we really need to find better examples. That's it, bye.